Clara Parks is back to tell us about boucle on this episode's Yarn Spotlight. Hi, Clara.
Hi, Uni.
So, when I think of boucle, I usually think of something like this.
Yes, exactly. That's what most of us think of when we think of boucle, the old-fashioned kind of traditional loop-de-loop yarn. And the key with boucle, with any kind of boucle, it's all about plying multiple strands, but you're feeding one in faster than the others. And what happens is that the one you're feeding in too fast it loops up on itself and then gets caught by the other strand, and then loops up on itself and gets caught.
And so let's make sure that everybody can see. That's actually these like little loops.
That's what those loops are. And if you wanted to go one step further and make a brushed mohair, this is where brushed mohair is born.
Oh, interesting.
They put this through a machine with sharp, cruel-looking metal teeth, and it shreds off those loops and keeps this fuzzy halo.
Oh, very cool. But boucle doesn't always have to mean mohair, right?
Nope, doesn't have to mean mohair. Here is an example, finer strands that have been run through at different speeds of silk, 100% silk. Here's an example, you can use a much thicker strand of fiber and apply it together with a teeny tiny little strand. And it doesn't even really loop, it just sort of waves back and forth on itself.
But you still get the sort of boucle effect to the fabric.
Yeah.
Well, now, but this is like crazy.
This is crazy pants boucle. So what's going on here is you have two different strands, and they're dyed two different colors.
Okay.
One is thin, the other one is slightly thicker, and each one is doing its own thing. And in the meantime, this little railroad track, these two black railroad tracks, those are coming through and sewing it all down, capturing it all down, exactly like that.
And then the thinner yarn is very regular, but then suddenly you have these much larger loops of the thicker yarn.
Yep, these big surprise loops.
This is fascinating, and the color is changing at the same time.
Yes, exactly. But the fun part is that you get kind of the furry loopiness of a normal boucle, and then you have these surprise poofs sticking out.
And here it is knitted up.
Yeah.
Right?
So what I did here, with any kind of yarn like this, you don't need to do any complicated stitching because the yarn knits itself up for you.
The yarn is the interest.
The yarn is totally the interest, and anything that you tried to do would just totally get lost in it. But still, I was kind of curious. I knit this first half just in pure stockinette, and then up here we have garter, and you can see the purl ridges. They're a little bit more prominent. It totally depends on what you feel like doing. But the fun part is these little thick areas, they puff out at regular intervals and give it an even more three-dimensional structure.
They kind of almost create their own pattern too as they sort of stack up.
Yeah.
And on what does the reverse stockinette look like?
That would be over here. Yeah, normally I like to say with boucle yarns, use the reverse stockinette side because it's just utter total texture. You've got all the purls on every single row. The stockinette kind of smooths it out a little bit, and the big lumpy lumps tend to show on the reverse side more than they do on the smooth facing side.
It's always knitter's choice, right?
Yeah, you can do anything
just which
you want.
fabric you like more. So, I think the big question for everybody with any kind of fancy yarn like this is how do you use it?
How do you use it? And the thing, like with this particular yarn, it's spun in Italy, and each skein, it has some silk in it too. That's if you notice there's a bit of a sheen.
It's a very nice kind of fancy, fancy yarn.
It's very. Yarns like this tend to come in small skeins. This one is 33 yards a skein. So if you were to do it for an entire sweater, first of all, it would be overpowering. I don't think they even envisioned that you would use it that way. But as an accent, it can be really, really fun. Now here's where I ask everybody to use their power of imagination here for a moment. Pretend that this is a whole sweater, right? And that you want to add just a little drama
just a little cuff.
to the cuff. Now, the thing you would need to remember is that you're going from a fine gauge to humongous US 17 needles I think I used on this. So if I were to do this again, I would cast off half the stitches before binding off with this. But that's really where it could be tremendous fun. For a cuff for your wrist, it can be for a collar. If you're knitting a nice bag, even 1 or 2 rounds of this around the outside would be beautiful. The other advice would be make sure that you have the purl side facing, because that will give most of the poofs will be facing the public.
Very cool. Great ideas for using them as a trim. And Is there anything, just, care-wise or kind of anything like that that's special about boucle yarns?
Boucle yarns, you have to be careful because they want to unravel on you.
Oh.
If you, oops, I mean, this one, because of that railroad construction in the middle, it's gonna catch up on itself. But like with a brushed mohair also, it's just gonna smooth out on you if you tug it. So you'd want to be careful about making sure the ends are nice and secure. Some people, even if it's a really bulky one, you'll tie the ends. Nobody's going to notice because it's so furry anyway, but you're going to secure the end to a certain point and then tie a little knot.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that'll keep any further fiber fraying from happening.
So finish your knits nicely when you're working with these great novelty yarns.
Exactly.
Well, thanks so much, Clara.